Så vil jeg gerne byde velkommen til denne måneds TECH30, hvor vi viser Bimfire Tools. Og Bimfire Tools er et symmetri Revit-plugin, der gør det muligt at integrere brandsikkerhedsinformation direkte i BIM-processen. Jeg hedder Tue Ebak, og med til at vise Bimfire har jeg Niklas, der vil fortælle om produktet, og det kommer til at foregå på engelsk. Jeg kan lige nævne, at DBI, altså Dansk Brandteknisk Institut, bruger produktet og kommer også med deres input, så det er jo en eller anden form for blåstempling af vores produkt. Og webinaret det optages, og så det kan genses eller deles med andre. Agendaen ser sådan her ud. Niklas vil gennemgå nogle af de punkter her, og til sidst vil der være mulighed for at stille nogle spørgsmål. Så med disse ord vil jeg egentlig bare overlade skærmen til Niklas. Niklas, I will make you the presenter.
Hi and welcome everyone. I'm going to present how to start involving the fire engineer and how we can easily enter a lot of fire data into the model. To understand what Bimfire Tools, where we're coming from, where we understand where we are right now, we are moving forwards a little bit. We need to understand today's workflow. First and foremost is that the entire fire safety segment around the globe works almost identical. These are a few different areas where you can see where we have talked to companies. Scandinavia should be changed to the Nordic because even in Finland we work the same where we have customers as well. And how it works is that the fire safety engineers create fire strategy drawings, those PDFs that we have seen so many times with redlining on top from the architect. And we have the fire strategy documentation where you read all the requirements, because not everything in the documentation is on those drawings. The fire safety engineers, in best case scenarios, they will do an ocular compliance, checking that your drawings are correct before they start to build. But most often, this is going to be those mistakes and those errors will be noticed on site when we're very close to opening the building, when they're doing the compliance. And this is how everyone works, and we saw that it was a flawed way of working. The risk of having errors is quite easy. To kind of showcase that how we actually works is the same, let's take a look at some of the countries mentioned here, their drawings. We will start with Sweden. You will recognize it quite well. We got an architect model beneath. We have some red lines around the wall compartmentation, some green arrows to showcase the strategy. It's quite early, you can see, because there's no opening requirements. And of course, around the lift and staircase. We go down or west to Norway. We have different green arrows. We have some here, we can see some text, some opening requirements, EI30, some red and blue on the walls, showcasing different wall compartmentation requirements, and the green hatch over the evacuation route. And of course, we take a look at the Danish one, where we have here different colors for the wall compartmentation. We have red, brown, and blue. We have some symbols showcasing different requirements that we have to enter there. We have some opening requirements, but especially we have, which is kind of unique for you guys, is the numeric, where we have 3, 4, 5 in this view, showcasing the opening requirements. But this is basically how everyone in the entire globe works when we are presenting the fire strategy drawings. So that is kind of the background, the starting point that we want to move from into a more digital workflow. So what is Bimfire Tools? We need to explain what it is, because we understand now where we're coming from, but what is it? As Stu is mentioned, it is a Revit plugin. So you're going to have Revit on the background, and you're going to work with a plugin in Revit to work with this. It is actually designed and created by fire engineers for fire engineers, where we basically replicated the workflow they do right now, which is their main tool, is the PDF, the redlining. Best case scenario, they work in AutoCAD LT, and they will use simple 2D symbols and blocks to represent those hatches and compartmentation lines. So we understood how they work, replicated it, so the threshold should be as low as possible so they can easier get into the model. It's very important for us that they feel that it's easy. And as well, we need to have the same deliveries. Basically, the PDF should be there as well. So we need to be able to create that as well, but you guys work in Revit, so you know you can do this, but it was one of the main issues or main concern from the engineers that don't reproduce the PDF anymore. Yes, we do, but we will, of course, get more from the same. Basically, when we are drawing in the 2D world or 2D floor plan, it looks the same. We have the same symbols. But what will automatically happen that everything in the fire safety model is a 3D symbol. It's for two main reasons. One is, of course, we have to work in 3D. This will mean that when you link a fire safety model, you will automatically see everything by default. You don't have to do any by link view or nothing like that. We can start using, the second one is we can start using this model for clash detection, not ordinary clash detection, but I will get back to that a bit later. So we can understand and actually do some compliance before we even start. But the main purpose for this was not to make the fire engineers create a 3D model and create the same deliveries as before, even though we get some good things with the 3D model itself, but it actually designed to easily transfer data between different stakeholders. You probably heard this before. Revit is a database, but now we're just focusing just purely on database data because fire safety engineers, they don't have any components, they don't have a model per se, they have the information in the BIM. They only work in that. So what a tool is all about is sending a Revit file as a database. Everyone else can hook onto this and pull data from that model onto their specific objects. We'll make it more clearly when we show this, of course. But that's the purpose, and we will get those drawings as well. So what is the difference from today? Because we are going to be a bit differently. The first question everyone asks is, okay, so if the fire engineer using Bimfire, what do I have to change in my model to get this to work? And the short answer is nothing. The only requirement that we have today is the same requirement you should have already in your project from the BIM execution plan, and that is draw a wall as a wall, a door as a door, a window as a window, all those good things. It will work fine. You don't have to change anything. The threshold as well for you guys should be as easy as possible, which you will see a bit later. So you don't have to change anything. Just draw as you should have designed. Once again, same information. As we start, we will say add the same information as before, but now instead of just a PDF, it will now become a 3D model, a DWG, an IFC, etc. So we'll have more different, formats that we can use in different parts and different stages in that workflow. Either it's the design phase, production phase, or facility management. We also know that the stakeholders, you guys, can start using this model more as a design help, because when you're talking to a fire engineer, that person usually talks to a lead architect, someone who is responsible for the project. But those are rarely the case are actually entering this data on those doors, columns, walls, etc. The person who do that is usually a junior architect or junior engineer, meaning we are conversing with a lead architect that then should inform the junior architect / engineer, which will actually do this. But now we only have a 3D model, and we'll link that. They will link that. They will see all these requirements on the spot, on the floor plan, exactly where that requirement is, so they can actually start controlling their own, having some kind of compliance, checking that everything is sure. Even though we can send data, some information is still good enough as just showcasing on the floor plan. For instance, could it be evacuation routes? We know that that will mean a higher requirement on reaction to fire on those cables and walls. We can showcase that this is 1.2 meters in egress width when we are evacuating, etc. We can still showcase that. And in which direction, how many people, of course, is going in that direction. We can get all those good things. As I mentioned, this last point, we will send relevant information at the right stage, because in early stages, we don't want to send information. This was the mistake all architects around the globe did. When we started using Revit, we wanted to add a lot of data early, and that data were lost and was a hassle to keep up to date. But this gives the opportunity and a possibility to send the relevant information at the right stage to you guys, to the other stakeholders. But as well, you control when that will happen. So you will both control. The engineers, fire engineers will control what information, and you will control when you will import it, but information will be there. And by just having a model, I always talk about, we can start controlling changes with link models. The fire engineers, I don't want to use the word not involved or not as involved, but as a fire engineer, which you all know, will probably jump into a project, work for 2 weeks, pause the project, and then we'll come back a little bit later. And that basically means it's going to have a lot of changes between those two files that they are going to work with. So here, by doing this, they can actually see the changes that has been done, and they can kind of update their model and follow your way of thought when you did those changes. You can kind of think of copy monitor, you will as well see this as well. But what I also like to mention is that both you and the fire engineers can start doing a simplified manual compliance. I usually say the most simple one, take wall for instance. You can start checking the fire rating on that wall as required, and later stages when you have an as-built, you can check that all those required walls are actually fulfilling those as-built. And then we want to expand this with reaction to fire, door fitting, re-enters, doors, everything, all the good part about doors, fire exits, etc., etc., etc. All that you can start doing quite simple compliance. So I will go back to walls. Rail is going to be more than 3 or 4 different wall requirements, but you can just group these in a schedule, and you can check these on literally 4 or 5 rows, and you can check the entire model easily and fast, and you can rely on the requirement because it actually is from the fire engineers. So they will and should take responsibility for their requirements. I can jump here where we showcase here. So quite easily, you can see Revit in the background. It's a link model, so they're not working in the architect model. They're linking it, and they basically just can enter those compartmentations on just clicking on these symbols. And right now you can see as well, we're using text instead of the the 1, 2, 3 for the wall, for the opening requirement. We can of course have those as well, but basically just click on those walls. The compartmentation will be automatically as tall and long as the wall itself, and the opening will just come as pure text, but you can also only select doors then. And we can start adding here a lot of information, and it's often that it's the kind of same layout as a fire safety compartment. So what I'm doing here is, from a few levels, we can start copying and automatically connect these symbols onto those components. So very simple, the fire engineers can start copying up those requirements, change what needs to be changed, and use Bimfire Tools to basically just auto connect to the underlying object, which is a quite nice workflow, as you can see here as well. Very fast, very accurate, and so on. And it works both with, we can see the color scheme with the green, it's using a space, you can read it here as well. So you can, those room requirements will actually be a room object itself. And as I mentioned, everything we've done right now, it is actually a 3D object. So here I just a cut through of the building. I will zoom in a little bit in a bit. You can see here that everything that is drawn is, of course, a 3D object. You can see it in 3D, you will see it in IFC, and because it's a 3D object, you will automatically see this when you link it, which is quite nice, quite simple, and it's quite useful. You can see as well, you can kind of see it here, but you can even add horizontal compartmentation as well when we zoom in here a little bit. All these different compartmentation are the category fire protection, which is which was a new category in 2022. All the information, the different requirements, you can see here, select one of the green arrows. We have a lot of parameters on the right. You can add and move, of course, the different requirements you want to use. Those requirements, we can, when we send it, we can see here, I open the architect model. The architect model will link the fire safety model as always. You can see them. We can start seeing the space requirement quite easily in our model. Just include elements, just reading the information as always. I mean, now here is the evacuation route. And we just here on under add-ins, import from link, choose the fire safety model and import. This will pull all the data from the fire safety model into your model. So now I'm going to select the door. You can see here on the fire protection, a lot of data has been pushed. I will select the wall, and you can see both the fire rating and a little bit on top, you will see reaction to fire A2S1D0. So that data you can see here. Once again, I'm going to let this loop one more time. That different requirement that the fire engineer actually is adding into their model, creating those PDFs, you will see them perfectly fine in your model as you linked it once again, and you can pull that data from that fire safety model into your model, because you want to use this data on your door specification sheet, you want to show this on your floor plan, etc. as tags or in schedules. You can now use this. So, and if you want to use your own parameters, it's fine. We can add those to the fire safety model, so you don't have to use the built-in suggested parameters. So that's always nice to have. So you can see here once again, I'll select this and all those data, the mean clear width 900, mean clear height, and door corner, and so on. And of course, you can see here quite a small changes what I've done here in the model. As I see in the fire safety model, they can use the audit trail. They can see here on the table, just one level. They can see all the changes and they can start tagging these, meaning we can color those objects that's been changed to blue, that's been modified, and everything in red that has been deleted. They can easily select those components that's been modified and go back to audit trail and resolve these issues, so they will automatically follow the new positions. So we can see here everything is moved except those that has been deleted. We don't want the tool itself to delete something, so here we need to remove this one and add new compartmentations, and we can trim it, of course. By doing this, of course, is that we don't have to use walls, because as you know, the walls is not always perfect. So we can still use the modified trim extend to make the fire engineering model just covering those walls that has to be have a requirement, notify the architect, the structural engineer, that they have to split it. Sometimes they want to split it, sometimes they don't. But in the end, those walls will be split, because usually going to be shaft wall, for instance. You're going to have a shaft wall and an interior wall, or bathroom wall. So they're gonna change either way in real life. So you're gonna do, you can start pushing these a bit forward when you start using your generic models. Just see your shaft, make the shaft walls only shaft walls, and then complement with the interior walls that you're going to change later on. But start by generic, and it's going to follow. It's fine. We can always manually fix these as well. Then comes the question, okay, we can start sending data. It works fine. We can create a 3D model, which is as well fine. But why would we change? Right now, the industry, the fire safety industry, is actually here. There's a new legislation in the UK since mid-July, which is called BS 8644-1, which actually requires fire data on all buildings taller than 18 meters or 7 stories. And there is a clause that if it's a hospital or of 2 stories, of course, that's going to need to be included as well. So it is here. We can see legislation there. We can see in Norway, some state-owned companies like Avinor, they are as well requiring this. We see the industry is moving this because in the facility management, they need to keep track of this. It's more fun than the PDF, so the finance actually think this is worth the investment. And as well, what's going to happen is that we're going to the finance is going to actually put in more time into the project, which we have seen leads to fewer mistakes, which leads to less material use, which is of course better for the environment and the project budget. But what is actually happening is that we are not adding hours in the project. We are actually just moving the hours right now that the US architect might add right now, the fire engineering information, the fire requirements. We're moving that to the fire engineers so they can work fast and just spend the same amount of time in the project, but we are literally moving in the Excel the different hours. This of course opens up the opportunity to use new digital workflows in the AEC industry. We can start checking if there are electrical sockets on a fire-rated shaft wall, which you can't have. You can find them instantly. We can start checking if easily compliance. We can check models easily and fast. We can check if room, for instance, it could be in a hospital that you can't put furniture in this area, which means, of course, we can start checking. You have a space from the fire engineer. Check against any furnitures. If there is any, move them away because you can't actually have any loose furniture in this area because it's a part of the evacuation route. So we can start the possibilities in this with these new digital workflows is endless. Basically, the idea, any kind of requirements you can think of, we can start using Solibri, Naviswork, Autodesk Construction Cloud, etc., just by having a model instead. This was a quite quick tour of the new, and I want to say thank you for coming here and listening. I want to hand it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Niklas. I know, and there was one question. Let me see if I can find it here. There's a person asking, I design ventilation. Does the red lines on wall require the architect to have used Bimfire Tools?
No, this tool is for the fire safety engineers. So it's going to be their own component. So as working with MAP or structure for that matter, you will see these red lines in your model the same way as if the architect would have done it. Just link it and it will look perfectly fine and follow all the standards.
Okay, there's another question here. Is there an API for the tool?
Not really, I would say. You can use some of the components, everything you see will be there. Of course, you can use a Revit API, but there is no open API for the tool itself. It was the first time I heard that question, but maybe in the future.
Yeah, and then I think I have an answer to an unasked question. I think that the pricing for this product will be 9,000 Danish crowns per year, and it's a named user license. I don't know if perhaps in the future there will be some multi-user license. If you would like to try to have a trial of the product, you could download it at our homepage, and we will also put the link in the follow-up mail, where you also will get a link for the recording of this webinar. And then I would like to mention that we have a Navigate Accelerate webinar in December, how to accelerate with views and sheets in Revit. And accelerate is Navigate Accelerate is the foundation of a lot of our Navigate products, with lots of different and common tools. So I think that's all from now. Thank you for joining this webinar. I hope to see you in December as well. Thanks a lot.